again, everyone. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone. Well, okay, still in the basement of solitude because you guys aren't being responsible enough, apparently. And I'm joined once again by my co-host, who is fresh off the July 4th holiday. Welcome, Jesse Jackson. How you doing?
I am great, Charles. I am excited. Pull the curtain back a little bit. We are doing two episodes for the
Yes,
price of one.
we're playing catch up. Yes.
We are playing catch up from last week, but I cannot think of a better show to play catch up on. Really two good episodes of Stargirl, and we talked beforehand, but it was a good holiday
Yes.
for you and your family.
Yeah, we had a good time. It was over this past week. It was my parents' 68th wedding anniversary, which is
Very cool.
pretty insane.
Yes.
And then we had the July 4th holiday. So I hope everybody enjoyed theirs, such as it is, and hopefully your neighbors weren't keeping you up with fireworks, like a lot of people's neighbors apparently have been. So here at episode 182. I'm sorry, Jesse. So you and your family had a good holiday before I get
Yes,
started in that.
no, we did. We had a good holiday, as I shared. I'm watching Hamilton and understanding the genius of it. We were planning to see 1776,
Mhm.
which is a tradition in our house. Sit down, John. Sit down, John. One of our favorite musicals. So yeah, it was a good day, and everyone was tired last night, and so you will appreciate this. On Turner Classic, they had done the Beatles,
Hard Day's Night.
Yes, thank you. I'm drawing a blank. I was
That's
like,
right.
yeah, and so I had not seen that probably in 20, 30 years, and I watched it last night and just adored it. It was
Right.
just so much fun. It was a great way to just kind of end the day.
Yeah, it's a fun film. So here at episode 182, we are going to be talking The Justice Society, which of course is the 6th episode of Stargirl season 1. And hey, isn't it appropriate that since it's Independence Day weekend, we're talking Stargirl. And this aired back on June 22nd, 2020. Like I said, we're playing catch up. And they were written by Taylor Streets, directed by Christopher Manley, who's directed a couple of episodes of Doom Patrol. And I'm not familiar with Taylor Streets, though. And in this one, we kind of we get we finally get to see this new JSA in action and see them face off against a couple of classic Golden Age villains from DC Comics Golden Age, Sportsmaster and the Tigress. So, and it doesn't quite work out as well as our new JSA would like.
Yeah, what is the song that they play on The Price is Right?
You mean this
Yes.
right here? If I can get to it.
Yeah. Our heroes struggled a little bit,
Yes.
and I don't.
The Price is Right fail horn. Yes.
Depending on time, I took the time to write down Courtney and Pat's final conversation.
Yes.
Because it was just so perfect.
Yeah.
It's just a perfect way to end the episode.
Yeah, I wrote that too, but you can share that when we get to it. Give a little background, a little trivia on this episode. So if you're kind of unfamiliar with Sportsmaster and the Tigress from the comics, I'm sure a lot of younger viewers, younger listeners are. Sportsmaster first appeared in 1947's All-American Comics number 85 as an enemy of Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern, the very first Green Lantern. And Tigress first appeared as the Huntress in 1947's Sensation Comics number 68 as an enemy of Ted Grant, the original Wildcat. Then she ended up changing her name to Tigress in 1987's Young All-Stars number 6 because there was, at the time, confusion between the two characters because DC had created Helena Wayne, later Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress, who was originally, the daughter of Batman before she was reimagined as the daughter of a mafioso, Don. And if you're curious about their daughter, Artemis Croc, she first appeared in 1987's Infinity Incorporated number 34 and became a member of Injustice Unlimited, the 80s version of the Injustice Society that was overseen by the Wizard, interestingly enough. So obviously they're not going to be able to do that because, hey, the Wizard's dead unless they bring him back from the dead
Right.
at some point. But I just thought I'd mention that because it kind of gave a little comic history for everybody.
Well, yeah, I think it's been really nice how they are pulling from the, golden age, silver age, kind of modern era, all these different things, and obviously with Jeff Johns and with James Robinson, we know on this writing theme, they're going to do that. Like, okay, why make up,
Right.
new villains or come up with new names when we can use these, tweak it a little bit to serve our purpose, and then they're kind of massive Easter eggs for the fun fans.
Yeah, the DC Comics fans, yeah.
Yeah, now, Charles, there is a small percentage that spoil it for the rest to go, hey, that isn't the true story.
Right.
And you're like, okay, look, just go with this. This is a new universe.
It's TV, yeah.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I agree. I did not know a lot about them. They were both very cool villains. And I'm always impressed when someone can do a one-hand juggle.
Yeah.
And in one scene he did that. Yeah, really cool villains.
I can do a one-hand
nice.
juggle. I can do a one-hand juggle.
You can.
I can't do a two-hand juggle, believe it or not, but I can do a one-hand juggle.
Okay, that I will need to see before we hang up today.
Well, I don't have anything here to.
Okay, damn it.
But,
all right, we're going to plan on that. We're going to do a Facebook Live sometimes. We're just going to see Charles doing one-handed
It's just
juggle.
basically
Very
like
good.
I can kind of spin a couple of baseballs in my hand, so yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Very cool.
All right. So 3 topics today. First topic I think we should talk about right off the bat because, hey, the title of the episode is the Justice Society. Let's talk for topic number 1. Let's focus on what I like to call the new Teen JSA.
I like it. I like that a lot.
Little nod to the new Teen Titans.
Yes.
Which I can't resist. So the new Teen JSA, our new Justice Society, the Justice Society, the next generation, if you will. Courtney, as this episode starts off, Pat is waiting for her because, that he found that Courtney has been doling out these superhero identities to everyone and wants all the stuff back, which kind of leaves problems for Courtney because she has to go around to everybody to try to get the stuff back. So what did you make of Courtney and the rest of the team, the new JSA in this story?
So I am going to quote you quoting Oprah.
Yeah.
That we know that Courtney did more than you get a costume, you get a costume, you get a costume. But from Pat's mind, that's what it looks like happened, right? And so he's very concerned. He is very worried about Courtney to begin with, and now then when you throw in 3 other
kids,
teenagers,
minors,
minors, he's incredibly worried. And Pat has a lot of baggage. Pat has had a lot of bad things happen to him in his life, and so he knows just how rough life can be and how bad things can be. So he's very concerned. I do like the fact that you're trying to put the genie back in the bottle. You're trying to once it's spilled, you can't get it back in there.
You can't. Yeah, once it's out of the bottle, you can't uncork or cork it back in there.
Yeah. And it's and so that made for pretty interesting interesting episode. I
So
liked it a lot.
so what did you make of the lunch sequence where Courtney has to like essentially, hey, I need your stuff back,
Yeah,
and Beth and Yolanda are like, no, no, we're not doing that.
yeah, no, and I think they all had their own reasons. That Beth for the first time feels a purpose because she's been just in you know she and her parents have been their own little world and they're kind of pushing her out.
Right. She finally
Yolanda,
feels like she has a friend
yes,
in Chuck the AI.
which I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily healthy. I don't know if they'll go there, but
I
it
hope not.
concerns me. Yeah, but what? Because I could see you becoming addicted to a virtual friend versus a reality. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'll just throw that out there. If they go there,
Yeah,
I'm
that's.
gonna.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's a possibility.
yeah,
Especially since we've watched another episode after this,
yeah,
that she does have that kind of seems to be clinging to Chuck
yes,
as like it's she sees it as her friend, her lifeline, like her best
yeah,
friend right now,
yes,
more than the other JSA members,
yes,
which isn't exactly healthy.
yes,
Although she does hang out with the other JSA members, so she does get some social interaction.
yeah,
But she talks about how like she spends hours
yeah.
talking to Chuck, and and that can't be healthy.
I agree. So I'm glad you're sharing my
Yeah.
concern
No.
about
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
area. Yeah, I do.
I think there's a potential problem there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Rick making the point, hey, this was my dad's. I should have had this anyway. What do you mean? You're going to take something that belonged to my father? I
Yeah.
thought was a really good point.
Yeah.
And,
And he gets his hold of because Pat brings him his father's journal to see if he could help, like um, give any insight about that. And Rick is just like, well, look, you can't have the hourglass back. This journal is mine.
yeah,
And and he's basically, he kind of calls out Pat. We'll talk more about Pat now in our second topic, but
yeah,
basically he calls him out as a worthless psychic who doesn't do anything.
yes. And then Yolando is getting um, you are starting to see she is gaining a little bit of her confidence back. She is in her mind redeeming herself and becoming more aware. And so yeah, these costumes gifts that Courtney has given them have been I don't want to give it back, and I don't necessarily, with the exception of Beth,
Yeah.
I don't think they are necessarily bad things that they're doing, and even Beth isn't bad now. I just see the potential.
Yes.
So
There's a potential for abuse there, I think.
yes,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I thought that was interesting. You knew it was going to happen, and I think we'll get to this later, but um, they are. This almost feels like you had 3 or 4 people and you get a new game
Yes.
and you rip it off the cover, you throw it in the computer, you throw it in your system, you throw it out on the table, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, we don't need to read the rules. Let's just start playing. I can't wait to play.
Right.
And all of a sudden, no, you can't, or to even do music. I got all my musical instruments and we're going to try to perform together as a band, and we've done no rehearsal. We've done no quote unquote training, and it's a disaster.
See, I think that's a great point because essentially what Courtney and the rest of the JSA, the new JSA, are doing here is the equivalent of, like you said, it's like a garage band. And they're essentially, instead of practicing for months on end before their first gig, they're just going out and playing a gig.
Yes,
And
exactly.
And as a result, it ends up becoming a disaster.
Yeah.
And it's only because Pat comes in and saves them. So
Yes.
so let's talk about that a little bit. So they end up going to what's this communication company called Empire Enterprises and the gamblers there. We'll talk more about the Injustice Society in another topic, but they go there and they each kind of have a little bit of skill to get inside. You know, Beth is,
Yeah.
especially Beth, who is able. Everybody's kind of wondering what Beth can contribute, I think, and then she ends up being the one who gets them inside the building,
Right.
proving her worth a little bit. And they end up running afoul of the Sportsmaster and the Huntress, and it basically becomes this great little superhero fight. Um, Essentially, what, in a parking lot or like right outside the building,
Yeah.
and
And then one of them was inside, like it looked like a storage area or something,
yeah,
right? Like, yeah,
the gambler was
yeah.
inside. Yeah, getting this information.
When Yolanda and Tigress were playing, it looked like some kind of warehouse or something because
Yeah,
we had two separate fights going on, and then everyone ended up in the parking lot.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You're right. You're right. Exactly. You're right about that. Because yeah, you're right. Wildcat was fighting Tigress
Yeah.
inside the building, and then it kind of spilled outside a
Yeah.
little bit. You're right. And so it's obvious from this point that this new version of the JSA has no teamwork skills.
No.
They don't know how to help one another during the fight. They're essentially like lashing out. Rick is, as our man, is going at it with brute strength.
Yeah.
Courtney, who seems to have the most natural talent, and hey, it's her show. She seems to be doing the best because
Right.
she's been doing like at least a little bit longer.
Yes.
She already fought Brainwave before. Poor Beth is just panicking for
Right.
most of it, and because she doesn't really, she's able to like help out just a little bit here and there, but for the most part, she's like kind of like running away from everything. And then Yolanda has that fierceness,
Hmm.
that fighting instinct,
Yeah.
but she's so outclassed, I think, by Tigress.
Yeah. And I think,
She's essentially fighting out of her weight class.
yeah. So, Beth, I feel a little bit like whenever I'm watching um, dystopian TV shows or movies, you're like, oh, what would I bring to the table? And I'm like, what? I'm not good at anything but podcasting. I'm a decent manager,
Right.
but like, I don't know how to fix anything or do electronic. I would be worthless as we're rebuilding society. You don't need a guy that knows all about Bruce Springsteen and is good at talking about Doctor Who in a future world. So
Well,
all Beth had, yeah.
if this coronavirus ends up going, if we end up in the zombie apocalypse, you might want to like develop some skill sets.
Thank you, Charles. That's a good advice. So and Beth, and I do think that um, Beth could learn how to be a strong teammate and offer advice and in a fight be available. But right now, all she knows is how to read a computer screen.
Right.
Basically, that's all the goggles are. And you're right. Rick is all about brute strength. He has no strategy. He has no tactical skills. It's just
rage, really.
yeah, it's Hulk smash.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
mix our comic universes for a minute.
Yeah.
But he isn't that strong. He isn't like the Hulk where, nothing can hurt him and he's just this force of fury. And
Well,
while,
apparently he's strong enough to lift a car.
yes,
So he's kind of like Spider-Man strong, I think.
yeah. And then certainly Yolanda as Wildcat, she has done some boxing but there's a world of difference between being in a Golden Gloves, ring with rules and sparring versus, in a knuckle,
A knuckle dragger,
yeah,
but like throwing down the gauntlets and really going
yeah,
at it for real.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Like a street fight. There's practicing in a gym, and then there's the street fight.
and as a storytelling device, I think this was needed. I think they did a really good job, Charles, of showing their cockiness, their enthusiasm. Hey, let's go get justice. Let's go get revenge. And to be fair, um, they thought they were going up against some middle-aged, overweight, card sharp.
Right.
Yeah, which we later know that the gambler is actually more dangerous than that.
Yes.
But in their mind, this guy is just, he's good at calculating odds.
Yeah.
You know,
Big deal,
yeah,
right?
big deal. We can take him. There's four of us. So I think it was the right step to bring down their cockiness a little bit, and a huge step that all teams have to do. No matter what, if it's a sports movie or a superhero movie, there is that point, and I think in real life, that you have to learn that the sum of the parts can be more than the individual, only if you work together.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a kind of a common theme in those kind of movies where the hero or heroine, initially just goes just all out, feeling confident, overconfident,
Yeah.
and usually ends up getting their butts handed to them by the bad guy, and has to kind of recover from that, and
Yeah.
then and kind of practice a little bit. You occasionally get those training montages,
Yes.
and and then eventually they get stronger. They get they're more skillful, and then they come back, and because of this, they win the day.
So
Which is probably like the plot of every Rocky movie ever.
Yes, and I'm now, by you saying training montage, I'm thinking of Team America.
Yes, yeah, the montage. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
I knew you were.
Gonna have a montage.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of. But that's essentially what happens, though. In that cliched storytelling. So, but also I think it serves the purpose. It gets the team, like you said, to take a step back, but it also steers them toward accepting Pat, and what he brings to the table.
And I agree. I think it's a good point, Charles, to mention. While this may be a cliche, there's a reason why it's a cliche. It's because it happens. And I certainly don't feel like this was a cliche episode. I thought it was a necessary episode to see. And I thought I liked the way that this was moving forward. So I will. I'll save it. I'll save it for later. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it's just it was that like you said, I think it was something that was needed because
Yes,
you had young people that just get a whole bunch of superpowers, and their instincts are going to be like, well, hey, let's go up and beat up bad guys.
Yes.
And the reality of the situation is much more different. So if this had happened in the real world, yeah, they probably would have gotten in trouble. And because of their inexperience, and it kind of forces them to take a step back a little bit. So we'll see how that plays out. Anything else about these characters before we move on to our next topic? All right, next topic number 2. Let's talk about Pat, Barbara, and Mike. So we have Mike preparing for a science fair. And Pat apparently is busy with dealing, like trying to reach out to Rick and dealing with Courtney and whatnot. So he goes to the science fair. Basically, we find out that Mike is like the Willy Wonka of Blue Valley. He is apparently very skillful with candy.
Yes.
And to the point where his science project is, I'm going to get every bit of candy in our house, and I'm going to create a chocolate lava volcano for the science fair.
Yes.
And at first he's like, well, I don't want anybody there to support me. But then once he's there, he's kind of like, well, nobody's paying attention to me. Until Barbara shows up. So what did you make of this little moment, or this little problem that I think that Mike's having with his father?
So we will talk more about this when we do our next episode.
I understand.
So let's put there's a lot I want to say, but I want to keep it in context.
Yeah.
So
well, we could talk about Mike and Barbara if you
yeah,
want.
exactly. Yeah. I still think so far it does. I don't know if Pat's a good father.
Okay.
Based on what I've seen so far, I would say he's not a good father. Now, I don't know if Courtney finding the staff and going off on these wild made him overcompensate, where if that had not happened, he would be more involved with Mike's life and be more engaged.
Right.
I would like to think he would be, but just based on what we've seen so far, he is an absentee father and is kind of and pardon me, Charles. Way back in the day, I was talking to an employee, a teammate, and I said, you're doing a great job, and I don't tell you well enough. And she says, well, I understand because I used to work in a daycare. I don't understand what that means. She goes, well, when you work at a daycare, the bad kids take all your time, and you tend to ignore the good kids. So I'm not saying Courtney's a bad kid. What I'm saying is Courtney has a lot of problems right now, and Pat's focuses on that, while Mike
I was just about to bring that up because I don't think it's I don't think it's all Pat's fault here.
No,
I think it's because of Courtney's, eagerness and unwillingness to let this whole superhero thing go.
Yeah, and so I think that's
said,
Charles.
It feels like he's obligated. He has to focus.
Well,
and Mike has to suffer as a result.
Yeah, Mike is okay. Mike is seems to be a pretty well-adjusted. We're thinking around 10. Junior high-ish kid.
Probably like maybe 11 or 12. Maybe closer to 12, I think.
Okay, and so he seems to be a pretty well-adjusted kid, and so yes, he's Pat's having to spend all his time with the person that's at risk, and in this case, literally at risk. I have liked Barbara and Mike's interactions. It seems like she is a very loving and caring a mother figure.
Right.
And she seems to truly care about him. She also seems to get him. Like she understands him a little bit more than Pat does. And I think that's partly because Pat's distracted, but just on what we've seen, don't you seem like there seems to be a connection of that they are finding each other, and she's been a really good mom to him.
Right. Well, I think that Pat's absence has essentially kind of brought them closer together.
I agree.
Like maybe they normally wouldn't be because, obviously because Mike being Pat's son and not hers biologically.
Yes.
Mike being the stepson to Barbara, they may not normally have been as close, but because Pat is distracted with Courtney now, Barbara has kind of filled that void a little bit, or at least is trying to. Now, obviously, she's got her own thing, as we find out, because, she's involved with Icicle's group.
Yes.
Unwittingly of what, not knowing that he's the Icicle. And she's obviously that, I think that's going to be problematic as well, because I think Mike is going to form a more of an attachment to her. And if she's off doing everything else, she's not going to have time for him either.
Right.
And so, so he's going to be left with like no parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And, and then I kind of see that becoming a problem potentially down the road.
Too.
But for right now, though, she's the one who shows up at the science fair.
Yes.
And, as much as Mike was protesting, he didn't want either of his parents around. He's relieved to see her there. He's like, and he's all eager and he shows her and she's like taking a very active interest.
Yes.
And so I think it was a good bonding moment for these two.
Yeah, and then afterwards, where they're eating the chocolate lava.
Yeah.
That's. I was thinking, I just don't. I'm too old. I can't picture just having candy for dinner.
Well, yeah. You're kind of beyond that, but I have
Yeah.
to think that Mike, you might want to watch out because you're essentially heading right down the path to diabetes early
Yes.
in
Yes.
life.
Yes, it is.
Like when you're in your 20 years old, you're going to be having a bad problem with that because all that sugar, man, you have to dial
All
that
that
back a
sugar.
little.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Absolutely.
the kind of guy that like when I was a kid, I was downing like 2 liters of Mountain Dew back in the day as a
Yes.
kid. Obviously, I don't do that now,
Yes.
but yeah. So I mean, I get it, especially when you're a kid. That's all
Yeah.
you consume because it was sugar, and you love the
Exactly.
sugar rush. So,
Yes.
but eventually that's gonna catch up with you, my man. Just a little heads up.
Absolutely.
Um, so now Pat, what I did want to talk about, he eventually reaches out to we talked about how after the JSA has their epic failure with fighting Sportsmaster and Tigress and needing rescued by Stripe,
Yeah.
Pat in the Stripe armor. He takes the kids back to his shop
Hmm.
and kind of shows them like they can look over the Stripe armor and whatnot, and they kind of like they're very impressed that Pat built Stripe out of cars.
Yes.
Beth makes this comment like, "Well, you should work for NASA," or
Yes. I have that quote. Right.
yeah, and but
Exactly.
and even Rick, who had problems with him earlier, now kind of developing this little bit of respect. And it's here that Courtney and Pat, and I know you're gonna give us that quote later on, but it's a big moment for Courtney and Pat because Pat has spent like the first 5 episodes trying to teach Courtney, hey, you know, if you go at this not thinking and not preparing, it's going to be a problem. And you're not listening to me trying to give you advice. So now he kind of gets the opportunity to flip this back on
Yes, he
Courtney.
does.
And so what did you make of that moment?
So first off, I loved it. It was the perfect way to, to button up and end the episode. You end it with, hope. You see where you're going. Though you have brought up 2 points that I want to put a pin in.
Yeah.
And when we talk to the next episode, I'm going to reference both of these. We're going to reference Courtney and Pat's discussion and
Yeah.
her revelation, and Mike's relationship with Barbara and his dad. So
Okay.
I'll talk about that next time.
Okay, but essentially this is the first time Courtney kind of gets the light bulb over her
Yes,
head
it
and
does.
going like, "Oh, I get it now."
Yes, and I also think Pat has acknowledged that, okay, you can't recork it, right?
Yes.
You can't
Yes.
put the genie back in the bottle,
And he kind of sees that the
or you
kid.
can't put the genie back in the purple pen.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
As we'll find out later.
yeah,
But it's I think it also I think in a way it kind of shows that Pat it's kind of a light bulb moment for Pat because he realizes,
yeah,
well, hey, these are good kids.
yes,
They actually, like they were brave enough to fight out there, and they kind of
yeah,
held their own a little bit.
yeah,
So maybe he sees that maybe he's kind of like seeing Courtney's perspective here as well a little bit, and he's kind of like as Courtney's mind is being opened, Pat's mind is I think also being opened to their opposite points of view, and they're kind of meeting in the middle here a little bit.
yeah. There is a question is brought up often. You're a baseball scout, and you watch two prospects run from home base to first base, and one of them has horrible form, and one of them has perfect form. They both get at the first base at the same time. Which one do you draft? You draft the one with horrible form because when you give them good form, they should be even faster.
Right.
I think he's seeing, with no training, no guidance, no experience, okay, they didn't get themselves killed. They got in a few points. If I can take them I do think if he could
I
turn back time,
I can work with them.
yeah, I can work with him. If he could, he would definitely change this back. But he's accepted the fact he can't. So, okay, since we're going to be on this ride anyway, let me show you the right way to do it, and let me we might be able to do some good, and I can keep you guys safe.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
So
I like it. I think that was a really nice.
Yeah,
that was a nice bottle to the episode.
It's kind of a good breakthrough moment for both of them.
I agree. I think well said.
Okay. All right. So, anything else about these characters?
No. All right. I love.
Topic number 3. Let's talk about the ISA, the Injustice Society of America. We kind of get a little bit more of what they're up to, although we still haven't seen the big picture yet.
No.
We start off the episode basically being heavily introduced to Sportsmaster Tigress and their daughter Artemis.
Yes.
And I want to talk about this a little bit. So Artemis, as we find out, is a phenomenal natural athlete. And so much so that she's actually like a girl playing on a men's football team.
Yes.
Which is very progressive.
And she is dominating.
Yes. Yeah.
They make the impression that she is not just adequate, she is better than everyone else.
She's a star player.
Yes.
And, because she's like an exceptional athlete coming from those two parents. And, but the problem is that she has a little bit of a temper issue.
Yes.
And because of that, which, Sportsmaster says, well, that kind of comes from her mom.
Yeah.
And Tigress. And as a result, she ends up getting benched after an altercation with one of the boys on the team.
Yes.
And the Sportsmaster and Tigress being, that those overprotective parents in the stands,
helicopter parents,
or the ones that think they know better than the coach.
Yes.
Confront the coach about this problem because, hey, you don't bench our daughter.
Right.
And the coach stands up and says, no, she needs it because she has an attitude problem and a temper problem.
And to defend the coach, he even said, look, she's going to play on Sunday or Saturday or Friday, whenever the game is.
Yeah.
She's going to play. I just need to give her some discipline. I need to do this. It will be in the better for her. The coach was totally right.
Right.
So Charles,
but he unfortunately he runs into the parents that he's dealing with there. He makes this comment like, well, I've dealt with parents like you before, and it's like, no, you haven't, because unless those parents were supervillains, you haven't. And then as a result, he ends up getting killed.
So I am recording this in Texas. You're recording this in Ohio. If they are not the top 2 football-centric states in the nation, they're in the top 5.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Especially in terms of college football here. You have, obviously you've got, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
And the Houston Texans.
Yes.
But, like here, primarily because our pro sports football teams, the Browns and the Bengals, aren't exactly lighting the world on fire.
Yeah.
Even when we had football. We had the Ohio State Buckeyes to fall on.
Yes, and so huge. So there is a culture of great football, and Texas especially has a huge high school football culture. Friday Night Lights, the movie was about it. The Friday Night Lights, the series, the great Friday Night Lights series, talks a lot about that, and there's a lot of beauty to it, but there's also a lot of scariness of it. And I can remember when my son Chris was playing junior high football that there would be dads that walked the sideline just shouting out and talking and just they could not sit in the stand and just they
make it more about themselves than their kids playing the game. Yes.
Yeah. And so I felt this perfectly. I do.
Sports dads.
Yeah, I think it's the extreme of them killing the coach and how often you do that. And someone online made the joke that it was like Spinal Tap's drummers.
Yeah,
I guess Blue Valley's head football coach are like Spinal Tap
that's a good.
drummer.
That's funny.
Yeah, they just keep mentioning it over there, and I love that Icicle's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing again?"
Yeah,
You know?
that's what I was going to bring up next because yeah, he
Okay.
finds out about it and he's like, "Hey, idiots," because he gets a call about what they call the gym rats. So obviously, and this has been a problem before that he's had to deal with. So he's like, "What are you idiots doing?" And so he confronts them and he's like, "Hey, you guys need to stay focused and stop messing around with nonsense like this because you're gonna expose yourselves and we can't do that right now because things are too critical." So he's like, "Well, why don't you get your suits out of storage and get back into action?" And that kind of refocuses them on their intended mission, their plan.
Yeah, it gives them a chance to, hey, put me in, coach. I also want to talk about that. Going back to Artemis a little bit. Um, Unfortunately, this is not just because she's the daughter of two supervillains. It is the curse of being really talented very early, and it is hard not to get a sense of arrogance when you're that much better than everyone else.
Right.
And it doesn't help when you have even just normal, you know, sports obsessed parents that are pushing you, much less being supervillains. So she's set in a bad place. And even there's that scene where they have to go, they talk about it. So do your calisthenics, drink your protein shake. They do not treat her like a daughter. They treat her like like she is a project. She is
Right.
like she's their prize fighter, and they're training her
Exactly.
to be. So I actually feel a little sorry for her. Um, I like that. I did have a question for
But
you.
interestingly, they're also
Yeah.
keeping their secret identities hidden from her. They
Yes.
have to they come up with this excuse that, well, we're going to be out of town. We're going to go on date night. And she brings up like, you guys never go on date night. Well, we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Charles.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on the pacing of expanding the ISA. We're 6 episodes in now,
Yeah.
and so we've kind of learned who they are. We're kind of getting little bits and pieces of the plan. Do you feel like it's going too slow, or do you feel like they're kind of pacing this well?
Well, I think they wanted to introduce everybody, and I
Right?
think they want to kind of develop them as characters.
Yes.
And now we're kind of starting to see the dynamics within the team.
I agree.
Because there's that moment where the gambler shows up at the football stadium and he gives them this ID tag for the Empire Enterprises employee.
Yeah.
But you also get to see that there's some friction there between the team members.
Yes.
Because the gambler walks in, he's like eating a hot dog or something, and he throws the wrapper on the floor
Right.
on the ground, and that annoys Sportsmaster and Tigress. Like, we pride ourselves in keeping a clean stadium or whatnot.
Yes, and they
So,
make him pick it up.
right, they make him pick it up, so you can see that there's some tension there,
Yes.
and I think ultimately that will be their undoing. Is that because and this is kind of why supervillain groups don't work as well, is because, hey, supervillains are generally looking out for themselves.
They do not play well with others.
They don't.
So I get the implication,
Right.
and I'll flat say it. I like the pacing. I think they have
Yeah.
done a great job of.
I was gonna get to that.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
But my point is that they I think right now they wanted to focus on the dynamics. So the plan, I don't think it really matters until we get to the season finale, which obviously this is building up to. Because I remember like in Buffy season 3 with the mayor, like he had a plan, and they didn't really reveal that until we had no idea what he was up to until the very end. and then it's just like, oh wow. So I think they're saving it for like this big shock of what they're doing. But they obviously have to have them doing something. They just don't want to tip their hands too early
Yeah, I really like this. I love that we are really getting to know the villains.
as characters.
Yes, as characters. The good and the bad. I like the idea that they're concerned about the JSA, but they're also not too worried about this JSA light.
Yeah,
Part two, and they're not. Oh, there's nothing to be worried about. There's some cockiness. You see that poor, and I don't mean that. I don't know why.
yeah,
Poor Icicle, but I'm saying
yeah,
Icicle has his hands full trying to keep everyone
yeah.
go there.
But
So
he also wants to find out who this new JSA is now that they've
yes,
kind of tipped their hand.
yeah.
And after that battle with Sportsmaster and and Tigress, I keep calling her Huntress. That he's like, okay, this is something else we need to pay attention to.
And it's at the very end of the episode when they're having that kind of get together, like we got to figure out who they are, and we'll,
Yeah,
they talk about they need Brainwave, and that we thought Mozart was going to get him back.
right.
Your
Meeting
husband could have,
Anaya,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And did you catch that line? Your husband could have.
Yes.
So implied that she was the wife of the original fiddler,
Right.
which I thought was a nice reveal. I just have really enjoyed the villains and they've gotten their own pacing and their own story. So while they're already established, we don't know them. So they've slowly opened the doors and kind of let us meet the characters, kind of learn their motivation, what's going on, at the same time where the main storyline is Courtney and her friends coming together and building a team. So it's been two storytellings, and I really think they've done a great job of mixing the two.
Yeah, I think so too. And one other thing I did want to mention really quickly is that we got a little scene earlier with Icicle and Icicle Jr., as it turns out, because um, Cameron McKent, Icicle's son, they kind of go out to this cafe or something, celebrating their mom's birthday, or Cameron's mom's birthday, Jordan's wife. And Cameron blows out a cake, and if you noticed, you got to kind of see that little freeze breath a little bit come out of his mouth, revealing and confirming that yes, he does have powers just like his father. So do you?
That was a really lovely scene.
Hmm.
Um, it is always nice to see your big bad care about something besides just himself and his plan. Um, and I also, let's look at the gym rats, how they treated a civilian. While notice, and I don't think it's just because he was there with his son. He truly was he knew the waitress was trying to do something kind,
Right.
and so he said, no, that's good. We should celebrate.
Or do you think he was just trying to keep his cool, pardon the pun,
Hmm.
because his son was there?
I I hope, and I am
Because he
by
kind of
nature.
I thought he kind of glared at the waitress a little bit.
I would have to rewatch it
Yeah.
because I was worried for the waitress, and I thought, is later he going to go back and kill the waitress
Right.
because when he's not in front of his son? But it seemed to be, while he may have had a moment, you touched something painful. Very quickly, he went, no, this is something my son and I can share. It is. She was doing something nice. And she was the waitress was so apologetic. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't,
No.
I was trying to do something nice and I didn't mean to bring back painful memories. I just thought that was a nice little scene that had, you didn't need that, but you added it a lot more that filled out the characters. And you really like, Cameron. And I'm starting to
Yeah.
like Cameron a lot. I think he's already shown a little bit of potential when he painted, and now then you see a little vulnerability of him. I like this character, and I'm looking forward to see what they do more with him.
Yeah. And obviously we're going to get more of him in our next episode. So
Absolutely.
we'll talk about that then. All right. Anything else about this episode you want to talk about?
No, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
All right. So favorite quotes. I know you've got a big one.
Yeah, so
But do
you
you
go
have
ahead and do. Yeah, go ahead. I have one short one, and you mentioned it already,
Yeah.
but Our Man, there's no way he built this out of cars. And Wildcat, more like 20 cars. And Dr. Midnight, Pat should work for NASA. And then Rick, aka Iron Man, I guess Court was right. There is more to Pat than we thought. I just thought that was a great scene where they're just staring at the robot,
Right.
like awe. So yes.
Well, it is pretty impressive. So yeah.
It is.
Let's see here. Icicle with Sportsmaster and Tigress, where he's basically calling them out about killing yet another coach. And Icicle's like, "What is this? You like the third coach in 2 seasons?" And Sportsmaster replies, "Hey, the jerk had it coming. Besides, the way I hear it, the last coach, he left town, and the one before that." And Tigress interrupts and says, "Accident with a riding mower. It was tragic."
Yes.
So I thought that was good. Mike with Courtney, where he's pleading with nobody to come visit him at the science fair. He's like, no, please, nobody come. No one's parents are going to be there, and I don't want to look like some nerd. And Courtney right there goes, too late.
That was great. That was really nice.
And then
yes.
Pat with Courtney. This will be my last one. Pat with Courtney. Pat says, "You've obviously started." And Courtney says, "I've started starting."
Yes, I love that line because she's at least aware enough. She's not quite there yet, but she has started starting. Well said. Absolutely.
All right. So go ahead and do your big quote.
Yeah. So, it's after the scene, and if you've watched the episode, you know what I'm talking about. But I just loved it. They're off. They're kind of up. They're up in a little bitty like overview. You can see the floor,
like a
the
loft
shop
type area.
Yeah. You would never believe them, Pat. I had a plan to stick together, and we would nab the gambler, and we would interrogate him. They didn't do any of it. They didn't listen to a single word I said. Pat, seriously? Courtney, serious. Pat, what? Like it went into one ear and out the other? And it seems to me...
Right out the other, she says.
Yeah, right. Based on what you're telling me, that you were trying to help them. Courtney, I'm just trying to help them. Pat, I mean, that's got to be frustrating. Courtney, so frustrating. And Pat, even a little bit annoying. Courtney, a little annoying.
A lot annoying, yeah.
Yeah. And Courtney, they're going to get themselves killed. And Pat, yeah. I mean, that's my sentiment exactly. And then the silence, and it's perfect. And Courtney, I see what you did there. Pat, yeah, I feel for you. And then they go on to say he's going to help them. But I just love that
exchange.
Because he's looking there going, you don't get this at all, do you? It was perfect.
All right. So ratings. Do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. I'm going to give this one. I like this one a lot. A lot of great character development. A lot of good breakthroughs, good character breakthroughs. So I'm giving this one 8.5 out of 10 chocolate volcanoes.
I was going to give the exact same rating, so I will go 8.5 one-handed juggles.
Sorry to steal your.
No, that's fine.
Sorry to steal your chocolate thunder.
Well, usually I go first, so you always have to have a backup. So I thought that was fair. This is really a good episode. I enjoyed it a lot, and this series continues just to really be doing a good thing.
Yeah. Now, Phantom Zone news, I only have a little bit of news that I want to share this time. Stargirl, if you've been watching Stargirl I'm sure you've been able to watch it on the CW, but if you kind of wanted to own it on Blu-ray, They've already announced the release date for that, so that'll be coming out. If you want to see those episodes uncut and you don't have DC Universe, you can get the Blu-ray on September 29th, 2020. At least for right now, unless they change the date. But for right now, yeah, September 29th, 2020, if you want to get Stargirl Season 1.
Good, very
And
nice.
then we just have to wait and see if there's going to be a Season 2. So we'll see.
Crossing my fingers.
Phantom Zone fan mail. Once again, we get to hear from Ken from Chicago.
Yay.
So who writes in about the Justice Society, the episode we just discussed. And he says, "Hi, Charles and Jesse. Ken from Chicago here with his review of the episode. He breaks it once again down to good, bad, and wah. Good, more villains, more development of the villains individually as a group. So they are not in Blue Valley by choice, at least not all. And of course, some chafe at following orders to lie low. Married villains are rare, much less married villains who are usually more widows and widowers. More Scooby Gang dynamics. Of course, Pat calls them out for being kids and Courtney for endangering their lives and demanding back the gear. Love the pushback from the kids. Yolanda, Beth, and Rick. Love Rick turning the tables. What if Pat asked Courtney to turn in the cosmic staff? Her lingering pause and the gang's thought-so facial expressions. Priceless. Rick challenged Pat's effectiveness or lack thereof. Super team, super fight. Do Sportsmaster and Tigress have powers, or are they just really skilled? They're just really skilled. Beth helped in the field despite not having powers, and without the stereotypical damsel in distress or geek in distress. Something I wished certain Felicity Smoke was allowed more often on Arrow. Stripe saves the day. Rick has to eat crow on Pat's usefulness, or is it humble pie? Now, the bad he mentions, Courtney just happened to approach the kids as they were bonding with their roles. Fortunately, that didn't last, and she did ask them to return the gear instead of lying to Pat. It looked like there was some wire work in the fights that was amplified by cutting it in slow-mo. I think if it was normal speed or even slightly faster 22 frames per second, a la Winter Soldier fight scenes, it wouldn't have been noticeable. And then Wah. So Sportsmaster and Tigress woke up Icicle to tell him about the dead coach. It couldn't have waited until morning. Okay, I'm stretching. I strained to come up with something for this section. I enjoyed the episode a lot. So he rates Stargirl's The Justice Society 9 out of 10 stars. Super Fight cinematography knocked it down a star. And that's it. Now keep in mind though, Ken, this is a TV show compared to Winter Soldier, which is a movie.
Right.
So there are probably some limitations on what they can do with camera work, I'm guessing.
But it was a pretty good scene. I agree. There was not only good character development, but it was a very I really liked the different fight scenes. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, obviously there's going to be some wire work involved, and it's going to be probably a little noticeable.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to kind of hand wave that a little bit, I think.
Absolutely. Well, Charles, I loved getting that feedback.
Yep.
If someone else wants to give us feedback, how could they?
Yeah, so if you want to be like Ken, because we'd love to hear from other people as well, not just Ken, write to us at phantomzonecast@gmail.com. That's phantomzonecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at phantomzonecast on Twitter, or on Facebook, the Phantom Zone Podcast, or Instagram at Phantom Zone Podcast. So lots of places to reach us. We'd love to hear from you. Hopefully you're enjoying our discussions of Stargirl, like Ken is, and would love to share your thoughts as well, because we'd love to hear from him. And Jesse, where can they reach you?
So you can hear me every week talking Doctor Who and all that implies with my favorite co-host, Charles Skaggs. We are coming up. We are going to discuss a really, really, really good Big Finish audio.
Mm-hmm.
Hint, hint, spoilers. wow,
Now,
this was really good.
now you know why I wanted to talk about this one.
Yes, it was really good.
It's a
Yeah,
classic.
coming up. Yeah. We're continuing. We talk classic and modern Who. So please check Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast with Charles and I. And I am on Set Listing Bruce. Coming up, I recorded this last week. It won't come out for a couple of weeks, but Russ Burlingame, who is a comic book writer for, and I'm drawing a blank on the website, but he's writes a lot of comic book material for Comic News, I think .com. I'll have to look up the site, but
You mean
anyway,
comic book resources?
yeah.
Or
So
Newsarama or
yeah. I should have had that. Anyway,
yes.
the reason I'm bringing this up is not only did we talk Bruce, but I said, okay, I'm going to ask something that only like 2 people will care that's listening to him. Let's talk about Batwoman. And so we spent about 5 or 10 minutes talking about what's going on. So if you are, when that comes out, you could listen to that episode and discuss it. It's been a lot of fun. And Charles, not only are you are stepping up with Titan Talk with our Italian brother.
Yeah. Italian brother from another mother.
Yes, that we may have to make him our official third co-host on Titan Talk because so great. But you guys are talking the Great Doom Patrol on Titan Talk. So what else can we hear you from?
Yeah. So as for me, if you want to reach me, you can reach me at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Would love to, if you liked and followed me there, would definitely appreciate that. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, or my blog, Geeky Things. Let's do this thing.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Fandom Zone podcast. All kinds of comics news, TV news, so comic book TV news, news of my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group, including the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast that I do with Jesse and assorted special guest companions. And then Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where DJ Nick, friend of the show, and I are currently reviewing Doom Patrol Season 2. And Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast they're doing with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things Twin Peaks and David Lynch. And we just finished our commentaries for the recent 2017 Showtime revival of Twin Peaks, aka Twin Peaks Season 3. And now we're going to be coming up in our next episode. We're going to be reviewing the David Lynch film Mulholland Drive.
Very nice.
Which is a great film from 2001 starring Naomi Watts. And highly recommend it. It's a great, great film. And then we're going to be doing a nice little deep dive into that and the Criterion Collection release in the episode after that. So
good.
So stay tuned for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Next time on the Fandom Zone, well, hey, we're going to be recording this right in like 5 minutes after we finish this one. So you won't have to wait very long, if at all, for episode 183. As Jesse and I return to talk Shiv Part 1, the 7th episode of Stargirl, as Cindy Berman finally goes full supervillain like we knew she would because, hey, she's the mean girl, and Courtney finally gets her archenemy, Shiv. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Jesse, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, just this was another great episode. I'm looking forward to talking Shiv Part 1 with you in just a few minutes after a bio break. And I hope our listeners are enjoying this ride. Please, please reach out to us. Charles gave you our contact information. I'm on Twitter as well. Please share what your thoughts on it because we would love to hear more feedback on what you guys are liking or not liking.
Yeah,
and Charles?
And if you know any other Stargirl fans that think they might like our podcast, please and share our episodes around. We definitely would appreciate that because obviously, hey, we'd love to grow our audience and we could definitely use your help with that. So because people that we don't know. So if you're so inclined, we would definitely appreciate that. And
Well said.
Everybody, thank you again for listening. Come on right back for Shift Part 1, Episode 183 on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.